Wrestling Roundup this morning was saddened to learn of the passing of one of the greatest ring announcers of all time, Howard Finkel. In his memory, we will now play a 10-bell salute before the show today. Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey.
We have a very quickly developing story that we're going to talk about for most of the part on this show today. The week has been a rough one for the WWE, to say the least. We kicked off with the news that the Revival were released from their contracts. Then we learnt that the WWE was going to continue live shows, as they were deemed an essential service by Florida. And then we moved on into a day of mass releases and furloughing of staff at the WWE. Where to start? Let's just kick off with the Revival. They're probably the easiest guys to talk about. You know, they'd been wanting their release for a while. It seems obvious where they'll be headed once this stuff all blows over.
Yeah, they're the most obvious to get picked up by AEW once the 90-day no complete cause is up. And they definitely can be used by AEW for their tag team division.
Yeah, I think the thing people have got to realize is that, if they don't already, that this stuff is also going to be hitting other companies. Like, nobody's going to go on a mass hiring spree. We're not going to sit here and say, oh, company A should hire everybody, and company B should hire everybody. It's not the way it works.
Yeah, it's definitely not the way it's going to work. But there could be one or two of these mass releases to show up for New Japan. One or two show up for AEW. One, two show up for Ring of Honor. So that's not out of the realm that they may all still find something to do, but it's definitely going to be a lot of questions going forward. And I also think that several of these are just temporary releases.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll definitely be back with WWE once everything starts to normalize a little bit.
Yeah, some of them are really a little weird in that respect, as you say, about them being temporary. I know there's been rumors floating around that there's a lot more staff who have been put on temporary suspension and are just not talking about it at the moment. So, obviously it is very developing. And what we're going to talk about this week on the show is just what we know at 6:30 a.m. on the 17th of April, New Zealand time. And if it changes in the middle of the show or if it changes after we record, then sorry, we can't cover that stuff. But at the moment, all we know is that this selection of superstars will, for the foreseeable future, no longer be with the WWE. We talked about the Revival. You know, it seems like they're headed towards AEW. It seemed like they were headed that way before Black Wednesday. They'd signaled those intentions. They have a pretty decent relationship with the Young Bucks. And they'd been wanting to get out of their contracts for quite a while. So it's not crazy surprising that the WWE, knowing that they were going to have to make financial cuts, just let two superstars go rather than letting them sit on the shelf.
Yeah, I think it is also a byproduct of WWE just signing everybody that even had a whiff of interest in the company. because it did create a bottleneck. And as much as I hate to say it, some of the people that did get released needed to be for some time now. Much as bad as that sounds, and I realize that sounds really badly.
Yeah. I'll do a nice blanket. We're not advocating for anybody to lose their lives or their jobs and their livelihood or anything like that. We're talking about it from a character development standpoint and on-screen usages and stuff like that. Perfect world, everybody would be hired and everybody would be making money doing what they love. It's never great when one talent, nonetheless 20, 30 talents, 40 talents, hundreds of talents, lose their jobs in the middle of a crisis like this. So, but there was definitely a number of talents on this list who have been struggling or not used to their pre-WWE levels. But we'll kick off probably with, at least when the list first got released, the number one names on the top of that list, which were Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows.
And yeah, they had just signed a new deal, so this one kind of come out of nowhere, out of left field. It's also one of those situations where I think it is a case where they'll be back in a few months. I don't think this is a permanent one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you say, 5-year deal. I think it was in like June or July last year. They were just in the Boneyard match at WrestleMania 36. Obviously, they weren't the champions, but they were still featured every week on Raw. They're probably one of the more top-level talents that were included in Black Wednesday, sorry. And yeah, I don't know whether they've both indicated before that they chose the WWE because it just works out well for them. You know, money, family, and that they don't mind if they're being used and such things like that. So, I don't know. I don't know if this event will prompt them to look elsewhere, but if they do look elsewhere, if WWE isn't going to re-sign them in a few months or however long, I don't think they will be short of offers.
No, they definitely won't be, because again, AEW is another company that could benefit from the OC coming over. They could always return to Japan. That's always an option.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's plenty of possibilities, and they could also probably make a decent amount of money on the indie circuit once that gets picked back up. At least until WWE is in a position to be able to re-sign them, or they want to be signed by somebody else.
Next up is former NXT Cruiserweight champion Lio Rush. He's been with the company. He's been distanced from a little bit, came back, looked strong, and has now been released.
This might be a case where it might be beneficial to the talent himself rather than the company releasing them. Because I do know that Lio Rush has done things where he's wanted to branch out into like music and stuff, so that would give him an opportunity to be able to do that. I just worry about his mental health because he has had issues with that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is going to be a recurring theme throughout all these names. There are options for him.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised to see him back in WWE in a couple months.
Yeah, I think
I would probably be surprised to see him in AEW, though. I don't think he fits there.
He's quite a talker, quite a boisterous character. But yeah, he was really good in the cruiserweight division and stuff like that. But they have sort of died down on the cruiserweight division as well, merging it into NXT. But yeah, Lio Rush's name is on the list. And if we're talking about cruiserweights, we're going to transition straight on into Drake Maverick as well, who is right in the middle of the interim NXT Cruiserweight title tournament.
Yeah, that one I think was one of the biggest surprises. WWE was huge on him. All the stuff he's done with the 24/7 championship, his work as the general manager of 205 Live was pretty good too. And then you have the possibility of him actually wrestling a few matches and possibly actually starting to wrestle more often and not just in the comedic little segments with the 24/7 title.
Yeah. So I was excited for. I really wanted to see him in this NXT Cruiserweight tournament because, Rockstar Spud, to use his previous name, was a really good and entertaining wrestler. We will obviously still get to see him in this tournament, but it's probably clear he's not going too far.
Yeah, he's definitely not winning, but at least he'll have at least 3 matches.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the strongest cases that he'll be back. Because I think he absolutely adored working for WWE, and I think WWE absolutely adored having him.
Yeah.
So I really do think he'll be back with WWE.
In the opposite of your statement that you just made, we're going to move on to one of his best friends, and I believe a groomsman at his wedding, EC3.
I think this is a good chance for EC3 to do the Drew McIntyre path. Go out, reinvent himself, make a name for himself, come back in a couple years.
Well, some would
then
argue
he might
that's
get
probably
a major,
what he
major push and possibly be a WWE champion.
Probably did with Derek Bateman when he first got released from the WWE and he went off to TNA and did his EC3 thing, and EC3 and Rockstar Spud was like the hottest thing going in Impact for a while, and then he comes back as EC3. But go give it another shot. I know he's already trying to reinvent himself on Twitter.
Yeah. But be fair though, he was never world champion over there in Impact. I mean, he did have some success, but I think that's one of the things he needs to do is he needs to gravitate to the top of some company like Impact or Ring of Honor or New Japan and reinvent himself and find a character that works for him.
I think he held the TNA World Title for a little while, but it was at a time when TNA wasn't at its strongest, I guess. Potentially still called TNA at that point. I don't recall when the name changed, but it wasn't AJ Styles' peak TNA era. I think it was 2015, 2016 kind of stuff. So yeah, he could do with a bit of a breakaway. And then let's take one quick look over at a stable that WWE hired. They brought them to NXT. They put them all together. Nikki Cross on the main roster now, Killian Dane, NXT, Alexander Wolf floating around NXT UK. Their leader, which we thought was a big signing at the time, coming over from Impact, Eric Young, is also on the list.
Honestly, I don't have anything to say here. I think this is one of the strongest ones in which will not be back with the company.
Mm-hmm. I think his pre-WWE stuff was great. I think he had a chance to come in, work with the WWE, potentially do some really good stuff. But then once Sanity got dropped, it seemed as though it was a classic case of WWE has nothing for you. And so there was a lot of him on WWE Main Event recently. But yeah, a bit of a rough one for Eric Young since leaving NXT. We're going to take a quick break here now for our song in the middle of the show. Obviously, at this past week's WrestleMania 36, or this past week's, Braun Strowman did capture the Universal Championship. We played Drew McIntyre's song that week, but it is now time for Braun to get his moment in the jukebox. And you're back with Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh, and we're going to continue down the list. We might have to start speeding up a little bit. So I'm going to mention some people in quick succession. We've got Primo and Epico. They haven't worked matches in almost a year. It seems like they were just sitting on the bench.
They weren't sitting on the bench. They were in Puerto Rico.
That's true, sorry.
They were wrestling for WWE, their father's company.
Sitting on the WWE bench. But yeah, the writing was on the wall with these guys. And I don't think they'll be short of bookings in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, they made the JTG mistake and answered the phone call.
Yeah. The Wyatt family were a super big thing. It seemed like Rowan was getting a singles push finally, and then we get sidelined by a nice old Rowan being released.
It is what it is. Out of the four members of the Wyatt family, if you want to include Braun, I always felt Rowan was the weakest. So, although I did really like the character they tried to give him when they first split him off, but it just never seemed to work. I do hope him the best, and I hope he finds somewhere where he can succeed. Hopefully not in AEW, because I don't want to see him anywhere near Luke Harper. I'm sorry, the Exalted One.
Brody Lee, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I do hope he lands on his feet, but I'm not clamoring for him to come back anytime soon.
We've also got No Way Jose.
His career on the main roster was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, he definitely came from NXT, where he was a great little enhancement talent. And then came onto the main roster, where he was largely ignored. We've got Mike and Maria Kanellis re-signed in 2017. Again, much like the Good Brothers, signed a massive deal last year.
I don't know. I think they hired him for Maria, and Maria just kept getting pregnant and couldn't work for her. So this is probably for the best, to be honest.
Yeah, I can definitely see, maybe not Maria. I think Maria might be finished with the business, but I could see Mike going back to Ring of Honor. Who else we got here? Sarah Logan, most recently mainly featured in Elimination Chamber. I believe her husband's still with the WWE, and one of Josh's favorites pre-WWE.
Yeah, this one definitely hurt. Because I always had hopes that they would do something with her, and this almost extinguished them. I have hopes that they do bring her back in a few months, but I'm not entirely confident in it, and that concerns me.
Yeah, I remember you when they first signed her, going like, "Oh, keep an eye on this crazy Mary Dobson," and yeah, it seemed like, she had a look, she had a character. It seemed like maybe she was going to move in with the Vikings at one point, and it just seems like stuff didn't work out for her, and not to any fault of her own. Hopefully I'm not missing people here. Aiden English, once a member of the Vaudevillains, most recently working as a announcer/commentator.
I think this is just one of those cuts that are just, we'll see in a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Aiden was doing pretty well on commentary. But yeah, it's just a case where they have to shore things up because because WrestleMania is their biggest draw, and they make a lot of money from that show, even if it's not on, even if it's on the network and they lose a lot from those views. They still would have earned a lot from WrestleMania in general. That all disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, these cuts are definitely going to be felt for a while.
Yeah, I think Aiden English is one of the guys that in pretty much any company outside the WWE and in any role, tag team, singles, commentator, the guy will land on his feet. I got faith that Aiden English can land on his feet. Probably the longest tenured person that got laid off, referee Mike Chioda, been with them since 1989.
Yeah, that was something else. I wasn't expecting a highly tenured referee like that to fall. And, well, I I don't know what to say. I really don't.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to predict what's going to happen with referees and producers and stuff like that, with non-on-screen talent. I imagine this came down to, because Mike has been with them since the 80s, that generally how it works in the workforce is that he would be being paid more. Your pay rate generally goes up each year. And so it probably, when push came to shove and they said, hey guys, we need to cut a referee, you look at your highest expensive head, and you take aim that way. Whether that's the fair way to do it or not, and whether that is the loyalty-based approach or not, it doesn't matter when the exercise is to remove heads for money reasons.
Yeah, except I don't remember seeing him much of in the last year. I know you've been replaced as the the head referee, so I don't think we're going to miss him that much, because a referee's job is to not be seen.
Yeah.
You're not even supposed to notice them. So, but it is sad to see that he, as tenured as he was, is gone now.
We've got 5 more wrestlers. I'm going to leave them and I'm going to jump down a little bit. Just to mention in passing that we have had some people who are more rumored, haven't been announced by the WWE, that I just want to run through. Alexander Jaksic, Deonna Purrazzo from NXT, MJ Jenkins, announcer Jerry Soto, and Josiah Williams, who's worked on a bunch of music for NXT, as well as Dan Mather from NXT, just as some passing remarks. But I would also like to mention that a number of backstage producers have been reportedly furloughed. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that word correctly. It's not in my usual lexicon. And that includes Billy Kidman, Mike Rotunda, Dave Finlay, Pat Buck, Sean Devari, Scott Armstrong, Sarah Stock, Shane Helms, and Lance Storm.
Yeah, I think almost. Those will all be back in a few months. There's no doubt about that one, in my mind, unless they choose to start working for another company. So yeah, I think those are all temporary. The producers and stuff. They don't need as many right now because of these restrictions.
And also, I'm going to mention these two as a tag team, so that we get some positive coming out of it. Ryder and Hawkins, both been with the company for quite a while. Ryder came and went, was back again. Sorry, Hawkins came and went and was back again, and Zack Ryder been with them since 2006.
I'm going to have to find somebody else for my Vital to go at. I hope for the best for him, but I won't miss him.
I will miss Hawkins. I've always had a nice little soft spot for Hawkins. I think he pulled off some great work in the dying days of NXT. But yeah, it is what it is. And I don't think now either of them are going to struggle once the indies start back up. Zack Ryder will do fine, merch-wise and everything like that. And Hawkins has had enough of a boost to his career, I think, to continue along on the indie scene. We've got 2 more guys left to mention. Let's mention the guy who was arguably looking for his release, but hard to tell, Rusev.
What he does will be very interesting in watching, because I'm not that sure that he was looking for a release.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely think there's revives that he would be interested in coming back at some point. So it's possible it may be another situation where he needs to go out and do some things with like Ring of Honor or New Japan, get his name, get some more elevation in his name, and then come back and he's the next Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, I think something of note for the Rusev release is that Lana's name is not on this list.
Yeah.
So whether that indicates one way or the other, I don't know. We are quickly running out of time, but I do want to mention the last name on this list. I did keep him till last, because to me, whether he was being used or not, it was still one of the more shocking options, and that is Heath Slater.
I think he might have been the longest tenured person to get fired outside of like the producers and stuff. As he definitely was there a long time. And he survived all the cuts when the 3MB went up in flames. The other two left, came back, became WWE champion in successive years. And then people were like, well, I guess that means Heath Slater next year will be WWE champion. Maybe not.
No, to me, Heath Slater was one of those guys who was going to be a lifer. He was just going to, wherever he was used on the card, he was going to be with the WWE, he was going to be a dab hand. He's used for training, he's used to keep people safe. If they need anybody to come in there for a hand, that run with all the legends. I don't know. I think this one was purely shocking to me because I just expected him to always exist within the WWE sort of bubble.
Yeah, I kind of expected him to transition into a backstage role. And I suppose that's always a possibility when once this whole situation clears out and things start getting more normalized, is they definitely could bring him back or bring him on as a producer or a trainer or something.
Yeah. All right, well, we are out of time this week. It's been great talking to you.
Bye, B.
And you can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/WrestlingRadio, or Twitter page, twitter.com/WrestlingRadio. And we will see you next week.